On today's episode, I talk about the importance of never forgetting who you are. It's a hot one today, trust me.
This is the Professional Stepdad, a place where we share stories, strategies, and ideas for men just like you to help answer that one important question: how can I be a better stepdad?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Professional Stepdad Podcast, Episode 3. I am your host, Franco Zavala. Thank you for joining me. I'm feeling a little bit inspired right now because I'm doing my personal growth, and I came across a subject in my book that I'm reading called Crush It, and I wanted to kind of share it with you because it relates to every one of us as stepdads as we are going along our journey. And I found it very interesting because it's important. Even this little phrase that he says in this book resonated with me so much because I remember that this was a turning point for me as a stepdad. So this section of this chapter in this book, it says, you got to be you. What makes you unique as a stepdad, what makes you unique as a man, is your ability to step into the situation that you're in currently, right now, or that you're thinking about going into, right? And what makes you unique is that inner something that can only be defined by you that makes you the person that you are. A man that saw a life scenario, right? Where most men would run, looked at this scenario and said, you know what, I got this, I'm going in. And you decided to step up and step into the role of leader in this new family. So never lose sight on the fact that you gotta be you. No matter what I say, no matter what any book says or magazine or video, you have to always keep in mind that you have to implement the things within your family based off of the type of person that you are and what your strengths are. And this is why it's so important to go back to episode 1 and rewatch the how much I stress the importance of self-reflection. Right? When you're doing your self-reflection, when you're doing your self-work, and what you're doing is you are identifying the strengths. You're identifying your strengths on this paper, right? You're identifying your strengths, you're identifying your values, you're identifying the things that make you you, right? It's almost like painting a picture. If I told you to paint a picture of yourself and define it with words, this is what self-reflection is. Self-reflection is very much an individual painting of you described with words. And this is what defines you as a man, defines you as a person, right? So when you do that, when you can define your values, when you can define your identity, when you can define just what makes you this amazing man that stepped into this new family, when you can define it and look at it and see it and touch it and it's tangible and you can show it to somebody, then and only then can you move forward with any of the information on any of the platforms, because you are going unconsciously to cater those suggestions to who you are, what makes you great, what makes you amazing. You have to be you. That's one of the biggest, when I look back at my life and I look back at my journey over the last 10 years as a stepdad, when I look back at it, I can say that in the beginning, I tried so hard to be their real dad. I tried so hard to be the businessman and the way I kind of carried myself and how I talked to people and what I thought that they wanted me to be. But on the inside, I was like eaten up because I knew that I had a lot of value. Everything that I had to share, there was value in it, but I wasn't able to communicate that properly with the ones that I loved because I didn't do the self-work that was needed. And the self-work that was needed was to write it down and to identify it and to look at it, because then and only then, by identifying it, I was able to implement it into my new family, where I was able to use my strengths for positive growth towards this bigger picture. I had to be me. Who am I? Who was I? Okay, well, let's get right down to it. I'm a 41-year-old man that spent 7 years in the Army jumping out of airplanes. I had in and out jobs. I was addicted to alcohol. I was a womanizer, meaning I didn't respect women. And I thought that that's what defined me. But what really defined me when I was able to look at it on paper was that I was this outgoing, charismatic individual who had the biggest heart in the world and loved. But more importantly, what makes me me is my creativity, my ability to create, my ability to see things for greatness, my ability to see the best in people, my ability to bring out the best in people. That's my strengths. So when I wrote that down and I owned it, I owned my strengths, I owned these characteristics that I wrote on this paper, when I owned them, I then began to develop those characteristics into ways that I could connect with my oldest children, or my son, or my wife, or the others, right? The in-laws, the parents, the grandparents, the neighbors, you name it. Don't try to be the real dad, no matter what your scenario is. For me, for our situation, their real dad passed away from a heart attack. Okay, so he's not in the picture. For some of you, the real dad is down the street. For some of you, the real dad is in prison. For some of you, the real dad is supportive. So for some of you, the real dad is unsupportive. I don't know. Whatever your situation is, don't try to be them, be you. Go all in on your strengths and your abilities to be the very best that you can be when it comes to that specific situation. Am I making sense? So when I talk about making sure that you stay true to who you are, some people might see them as flaws. Some people are going to judge you. Some people are going to look down on your career or the things that you want to do and not agree with you whatsoever. When I first met my wife at the age of 31, and when I say met, I mean re-met, because again, I've known my wife since I was 6. That's an amazing story I'll tell you guys someday. But I was this 31-year-old, just got out of the military, gonna be an actor, driving a very broken down car. And I was, for the longest time, I would compare myself to their real dad, who was this successful dentist who drove BMWs, right? And I held this like cloud, it was like a cloud over my head. And it was like I was living in the shadow of this man's success through his life. But at the end of the day, when I was able to identify that and then to share that with my wife, and we were able to talk about it and to attack this problem with me on a surface level and on a deeper level, I realized very quickly that what I'm bringing to the table and what he brought to the table are two different things, because we're two different people. And my strengths were not his strengths, and his strengths were not my strengths. And I can't try to be him, nor can he be me. Well, you know what? You see where I'm going on this? The dad, the bio dad can't be you, and you can't be him. Don't try to be. Don't try to emulate what happened before. Go all in on your strengths. Don't forget to be you, and then use those strengths for greater power, which is to develop this roadmap to success and to build a foundation for your family so you can actually find success. And I don't even know what the statistical numbers are for stepdads who enter into homes and then leave, or they don't want any part of it. I don't know what the numbers are. If you know the numbers, I would like to know. I'd like to share that with our viewers. I'd like to share that with people we know. But I have no idea what those numbers are. But I can tell you this. I can tell you that those stepdads that decided to leave, that had one foot out the door almost the entire time they were there, and then when they saw an opportunity to jump, they left. I can tell you that if they would have went into their new family by first identifying their strengths and not focusing on their weaknesses, and then building on those strengths, and then connecting them with the individuals in their family, that they would still be there today. So do not forget to be you. You got to be you. There is nobody else. You are the stepdad that stepped up. You're the man that entered in their life. You're the man that is thinking about entering their life. Stay who you are. Stay true to yourself. That's really, really important. That's something that I'm going to make sure that I implement it with my son, which is he's got to make sure that he remembers that he's just this amazing creative individual that has all these strengths. and he's competitive as hell, and he gets that from me. But what's going to make him an amazing man as he gets older is his ability to identify, at a very early age. At I think 3 years old, I started working with my son, and every night before he would go to bed, I would ask him, who is he? What are you? And he would have to say words that described who he was, how he saw himself. And then I would ask him, what does it take to be a man? And he would say things like, respect women, I love, take out the trash, like little things, whatever a kid says, right? But it started to help him paint this picture of who he is. And it's an amazing thing to do. I highly suggest you do it. So this is a short podcast. Again, this is a little, not a rant, but this is a little bit of a direct. I was reading and I want to make sure I share the information with you. You got to be you. Go back, watch episode 1 that talks about self-reflection. Sit down, do the work, identify your strengths, and then take those strengths and find creative ways to implement them within your new family, and you're going to win. I'm telling you, you're going to win. Doesn't matter what book, what seminar, what podcast, what YouTube show you watch. If you forget who you are and why you're there and the kind of man you are, it will not matter what piece of advice you read, watch, or learn. You cannot find success if you don't go all in on you first. All right? So don't forget to be you. This is episode 3 of the Professional Stepdad Podcast. I'm your host, Franco Zavala. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you guys later.